Think you are too small to make a difference? Try sleeping with a mosquito. Dalai Lama. Yo, guys, what is going on? Today is July 20, 2020, and we're really excited to have you on the inaugural episode of Triple Threat Podcast, or TTP, if you will.
Hey, what is up, guys? I'm Keshav, and along with me is Chirag and Rohit Kumar. We're Triple Threat Podcast, as Rohit said, and we're going to be releasing episode 3 times a week on football, basketball, and other shit. And 2 of those days will be game breakdowns and player breakdowns, and the final episode will be on some miscellaneous sports topic. And we'll also be happy to have guests on the show, so if you're interested, please DM our Instagram page. So what do we got today, Chirag?
Today we're going to be looking at a very interesting playoff game, and in my opinion, it's one of the greatest comebacks in NBA history. So when you look at this game, it happened in the 2015 NBA playoffs. It was the Western Conference semifinals, and we have the Rockets against the Clippers. Now in the series, the Clippers were actually up 3-2. So this is a very important game for the Rockets, as they need to win this game to stay in the playoffs, or they're just going to go back home. Now, when you look at the box score of this game, you think it's just, a normal playoff game. The Rockets came ahead, winning 119-107. Probably thought maybe James Harden, had a good game, dropped 40, led his team back. But when you really look at this game, we find some very interesting things. It was led by 2 players specifically in the second half, known as, Greyhound, because he goes coast to coast. We have Corey Brewer. And another very interesting player, Josh Smith. Now we're going to be looking at these 2 players to see what really led up to one of their career highlights. Now looking at Corey Brewer, he had a lot of expectations coming into the NBA. He was 7th overall. He was a great kid coming out of the University of Florida, very high-powered team. But he just never really lived up to anything. He was known to be a great defender. His offense, it was developing, but he just stayed that way his whole career.
Champion, though.
Now, he was chippy. He was known to be, he was that guy, but not always in a good way.
I mean, he posted some great games too, the 51-point game.
That's true.
He was a character guy.
He had a 51-point game
against
the Rockets. Against the Rockets, he had a 51-point game. And then he later got traded to the Rockets. Now, what I find the most interesting about Corey Brewer is that the playoff series before this, he actually shot 53.3% from 3. And he
was really
leading up to
8 for 15.
And I think this is one of his best games because he really showed off. He finished the game with 19 points, and he also had 10 rebounds coming off the bench, and he played a lot of key minutes in the second half. And James Harden was actually benched in this game, which was it's very disappointing as a Rockets fan. James, he shot 25% from the field this game.
And wait, when did he get benched? At the beginning of the third, or?
I think end of the third he got benched, and then
he played.
Corey Brewer took over. Yeah. Corey Brewer also, he finished the game with a plus or minus of 32. Very impressive. But I think more than Corey Brewer, Josh Smith really led the fourth quarter rally. And Keshav will explain a little bit more about that.
I mean, yeah, and Josh Smith, as Corey Brewer also had high expectations coming out of college. Josh Smith came straight out of high school from the prestigious Oak Hill Academy, where he played with Rajon Rondo, and he was drafted 17th by the Hawks. And I mean, it wasn't a disappointing pick. He was a consistent playmaker. He averaged more than 15 in most of his years with the Hawks, and he was a great shot blocker. And he struggled from 3, obviously. And I mean, not obviously, but he struggled from 3.
What does that mean? That's what it means.
I'm sorry, not obviously. But, he struggled from 3 throughout his career. And it's really surprising and that he played this well in this series, because in this playoffs itself, he shot 38% from 3, which was his best field goal percentage in any playoffs he's ever been in, which is really impressive considering if you look at his past field goal percentages. And Josh Smith, I mean, after being a free agent in 2013, He signed a big contract with the Pistons, stayed there for a couple of years, but he was waived by the Rockets in 2014. He was waived by the Pistons in 2014 and then signed with the Rockets. And just going back to how he performed in this game, it was pretty impressive how he was able to lead this comeback. The Clippers were daring him to shoot, and he really capitalized from the three, shooting 4 for 7, ending up with 19 points in the game, 1 block, 6 rebounds, and a steal. So, I mean, I think Josh Smith and Corey Brewer were really monumental in leading this comeback.
And also kind of surprising. So Josh Smith, like the one time he was giving the reins to an offense in Detroit, was terrible. So
Yeah.
To take over a game like this without James Harden doing shit, that kind of says something about Josh Smith's character. Great guy. Just didn't even go to college.
No one saw this coming. Especially he's been in the playoffs a lot of times with the Hawks, and this was like, I mean, in terms of three, he shot 38% from three. And if you look at his other his 3-point percentage in the other series, his best was 25% the year in 2012-2013 with Atlanta, which is awful. It's terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you look at the fourth quarter of this game, Josh Smith actually scored 14 points, and he was 4 or 5 from the field.
Yeah. The Clippers did shoot,
very impressive.
and he took it.
And I don't think it's a coincidence that, one Blake Griffin was guarding him. Blake Griffin, not exactly, the shot blocker that Josh Smith was in his prime.
Mm-hmm.
So, pretty terrible. Yeah. I think that's the only thing you can say. There's some other guys here too, like Terrence Jones, I think
he got solid minutes in this game. Yeah,
he played a decent amount, scored 16, 6 of 8. But yeah, it was Josh Smith alphaing this comeback here.
I mean, I think Dwight Howard also deserves just some props. 20 and 21 is a pretty big stat line too. He was also, I wouldn't say the biggest component, but he did his part, unlike Harden.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Clippers in the fourth quarter. Blake once again disappointed. He was 0 of 5. And he was he had 3 fouls. And it just wasn't a good game from the Clippers. Chris Paul was 2 of 7 in the fourth quarter. Their team only scored 15 points in the fourth quarter, which is very disappointing for a team like the Clippers. A lot of veteran presence, especially going up against guys that haven't seen that many minutes, like Josh Smith and Corey Brewer.
Yeah, even like the Clippers' other guys, like shout out to 2 fellow podcasters, and Matt Barnes and JJ Redick. Those, like, you guys are great, but you also trash on this game here. Like 1 of 8 for Barnes, 3 of 9 for Redick. These guys were worse. We've been giving Harden a lot of shit, and these guys were a lot worse. Like, they didn't do anything. This was Chris Paul just shooting a bunch of times, but shooting 1 of 5 from 3. Griffin, when it mattered, 0 of 5. Good game from before that, but he was 0 of 5 in the fourth. He didn't play any defense on Josh Smith. Yeah, I mean, these guys kind of just played like trash in the fourth.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if we really mentioned this earlier, but the Clippers had blown the Rockets out in multiple games in this series, and they were riding momentum from that Spurs series they had just won before, beating the defending champs in 7 games. So the Clippers really looked promising this playoffs. This looked like the year, especially where they would play the Warriors, where they could, really get over that hump and actually have an opportunity at making the finals.
Yeah, like when you say 3-1, you associate it with the Warriors, but at this point, I'm associating it like you got the Clippers.
It started with
3-1.
It started here, right? I mean, it didn't start here, but this was a big one. This is a big collapse.
Yeah, I did get blown out the game before that by 21. Again, I'll pull up the stats for that. I assume in a lot of these losses, it's going to be because Blake or Chris Paul were terrible. Yeah, Blake was 12 of 21. He scored 30, but I assume he played bad defense. Chris Paul, 9 of 16. Matt Barnes, what is Matt Barnes doing? 1 of 8 from the field. Dude, I just don't understand. JJ Redick was 3 of 12. All right, like the natural instinct here was to give shit to Griffin and Chris Paul, but Redick and Barnes, man, I I don't know what to say.
I mean, just look at the entire the bench entirely in Game 5. Austin Rivers 3 for 11, Jamal Crawford 2 for 10. I
Jeez.
mean, honestly, at that point, give Spencer Hawes all the minutes, or give Hito Turkoglu all the minutes. You know what I mean?
You know,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
also. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna shout out Dante Jones could have been the savior here for the Clippers. Again, he's a career 5-point per game scorer, and that's still more than that's as much as Matt Barnes put up. It's more than Hito. Hito didn't play, but it was as much as Jamal Crawford put up. Give Dante a shot, and he could have done better. Straight up.
Definitely, and I mean, anyone could have based off looking out of this. This
And
is
some of these themes, carried on to the Game 7. I think that the Clippers must have been demoralized. They lost a big game to basically, Corey Brewer and Josh Smith in the fourth quarter. And a lot of the shooting percentages were pretty low for the Clippers, and by some of their key players like Jamal Crawford, he was 6 of 18. And as a team, they shot 25% from three. That's just disappointing, especially for a team that has guys like Chris Paul, Redick, Barnes, Austin Rivers, all guys who can knock that three ball down. They just didn't come up clutch.
Jamal was shit, but dude, I've been giving a lot of shit to Barnes and Redick. Once again, theme Barnes in Game 7, 0 of 2 from the field, so he kind of lost all of his confidence for good reason. He was terrible. He scored 0 points, so he wasn't getting to the free throw line either. JJ Redick, probably worse considering that he shot the ball 12 times.
Yeah.
9 of those were 3. He made 2 of them for 10 points. Just I guess the Rockets were doing a great job defensively, forcing JJ Redick to shoot. I guess they were contested shots. He's gonna hit his open.
I mean, he's a great shooter when he's contested, but yeah.
I mean, he doesn't deserve any credit. He's just bad.
I think it may be worth noting though that the Clippers in the early 2010s to 2015, the Rockets from 2015 to 2020 are the Clippers of the early 2010s, choking in the playoffs.
In my opinion, the Rockets are one of the top 3 most disappointing teams in the NBA. If I'm talking about the most dysfunctional franchises in the league, I'm looking at Charlotte, looking at the Knicks, and then I'm thinking about Houston. Just a team that there's never been able to take that next step.
I wouldn't call that dysfunctional, though. I wouldn't call that dysfunctional. I think
you're a Rockets fan. What do you? Yeah.
Here's how I feel. I think they've had a lot of opportunities. They've had a lot of guys come in to try to test their system out. Recently it's Chris Paul. The guy, and there were a lot of surprising things that we saw with Chris Paul. Fortunately, he got injured. We never really got to see his true potential in that that Game 6 and Game 7 of the 2018 NBA playoffs. But I think it's a process.
Well, I think Keshav and I just brought this up to annoy you. It wasn't exactly a topic.
Yeah, it wasn't a topic. I just
we'll bring on someone like Uriel to discuss how bad the Rockets are later. But
I just
love right now
as a Rockets fan. Yeah. Because you're a Rockets fan. Yeah. So what exactly did the Rockets and Clippers do during that year in terms of transactionally?
Well, I mean, there's a few. So we'll talk about their statistical season, and then I'll look at the transactions real quick. Just pulled up a few things. So the Rockets both of these teams honestly were really good. The Rockets this was back when they played defense. They still had Harden, but they did their job defensively. They were the 4th ranked team in defensive rating per 100 possessions. And the Clippers, on the other hand, was 16th, so more middle of the road. Kind of flipped on offense, 1st for the Clippers and 12th for the Rockets. So each of these teams had their strengths. So it was a pretty good matchup. Ended up going to 7 games. They had the exact same record, actually. The Rockets were the 2 seed.
And they also actually had the exact same home and away record, too, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, so and again, 2 top 10 teams. If you're looking at margin of victory per 100 possessions, Clippers number 2 behind the superior Warriors. The Warriors that year, actually, they were far and away the best team in the league.
Definitely.
That's for another day. But then the Rockets were 7th, so they were no joke either. So a couple of good teams. Anyway, transactionally, so both of these teams made a few key additions. Chirag already brought it up, I think. If you haven't, so Corey Brewer was, I guess, turned out to be a pretty big transaction, acquired in December of 2014.
Uh-huh.
I'll say a big trade in the sense that it was like, the quantity was
Yeah.
there. There was like 5 guys, like a bunch of picks. But I think it was more of a financial trade, probably for the T-Wolves to offload some contracts. Then the Rockets didn't do a whole lot. They added Pablo Prigioni at some point. Yeah, they added him from the Knicks in February. Minor addition, didn't play a whole lot for them, but did fill that role as their backup guard, their backup point guard.
Yeah.
And then as for the Clippers, this was a team that before the season, for all you Clippers fans out there, you guys lost on the opportunity to run Joe Ingles. Can we just quickly talk about this? I've been saying this a lot. Matt Barnes is terrible, or was terrible this series.
Definitely.
Joe Ingles was in there.
Joe Ingles was there. We need that Joe Ingles Instagram account right now to, give us some Joe appreciation right here.
Just comment that under if you like Joe Ingles.
Shout out to Joe.
Ingles. Shout out Joe. This was again, both of these teams were pretty low on assets, so it wasn't like a that type of situation where they both made huge trades. Austin Rivers was an acquisition here for the Clippers. That was obviously a guy who played some important minutes later on. But that was about it. It was for both of those teams. You don't think Corey Brewer was a big deal, but
no,
I guess it did matter at the end of the day. But a lot of minor additions because these teams were so good. You don't see the Bucks going out and trading for, I don't know, who was a big guy who got traded this year.
Let's see.
I forgot, that was 7 months ago. Drummond,
Jimmy Butler,
right? Yeah. Well, that was the year before. Yeah, Jimmy Butler, Drummond.
PG.
These elite teams are not going out and making these big trades. There's guys like Austin Rivers, Corey Brewer, Pablo. Those guys.
Just like it's just minor guys that could fill some certain roles. And for the Rockets, they luckily got Corey Brewer and Josh Smith in December around the same time, and it worked out. As it looks like it's worked out. It looks like it worked out up until that series.
Yeah, you don't see again. So the big trades this year, Drummond traded to a shitty team. It's they're going to be making a big move. It just doesn't happen. This team is already good. They get paid a lot of money to CP3, Jordan, Griffin, Rockets, Harden, Dwight Howard. So not a whole lot in terms of acquisitions. I would say the biggest moves, we're looking at Josh Smith, we got Corey Brewer, and we're looking at the preseason cut of Joe Ingles. Once again, comment down below if you think Joe Ingles is a top 5 small forward in the NBA. Expect a few comments.
Top 5.
I mean, that guy's kind of raw. I know straight up. I think if he was on this team at that time, the Joe Ingles is probably pretty close to average, and Matt Barnes was so far below that benchmark.
Sorry, Matt Barnes, but it's just the way it was, man. I'm sorry.
Also, Jason Terry. I think Jason Terry was also a pretty big signing for this team. He was a backup point guard. He wasn't a guy that went out, some games. He wasn't like a Lou Will type of veteran presence, but he definitely handled the ball a lot, especially in the playoffs. He, sometimes got close to 30 minutes a game. So just to have a veteran guy handle the ball late in the game, it's important.
Yeah, and that was one of those odd September trades, September 17th.
Yeah.
They also picked up the pick that was used on Granny, free throw shooter, Chinanu Onuaku. So I would say that was the dub.
So was Pat Bev injured?
And where the hell was Pat Bev in this series? That is worth checking. Is Patrick Beverly just?
That's also an important thing.
That could have
depth at the point guard position.
Where was?
Search this up.
Was he injured?
He must have been injured because
he
I think he actually would have swayed this.
Okay, he got ruled out for the rest of the season in March after a wrist injury.
He played 56 games, so that just shows, Jason Terry and signing came up key.
Mhm.
Um,
Pablo.
when was Jason Terry signed?
Jason Terry was traded for in September.
Yeah, September. So probably after the just adding some depth. Jason Terry's not a huge guy, but he just to handle the ball. When Harden's not on the floor.
Yeah, it's like when you have all these good teams that already have a bunch of money allocated elsewhere. It's just adding these random pieces. Like they added Prigioni. This was all before Beverly got hurt, so they were just adding depth, and it actually helped them out. So kudos to Daryl Morey there. Won't say shouldn't say a whole lot about Daryl Morey though, because I don't want to get banned.
I don't want to get political here. But.
Yeah.
As a team, if Pat Bev were starting, they could have a pretty interesting, starting lineup if they were to play in today's NBA. They have Pat Bev, Harden, Corey Brewer, Trevor Ariza, Josh Smith. I think that would be, very ideal starting lineup for today's Rockets.
I mean, I just don't. Today's Rockets. Why are you?
They're just not going to win.
They're bad, Chirag. I'm sorry.
I'm telling you, Josh. He playing that PJ Tucker role.
Small ball Rockets something, bro.
It is.
Yeah, actually, I do agree. A prime Josh Smith, like even the Josh Smith that we're talking about here during this episode, the Rockets Clippers Josh Smith, isn't like the GOAT or anything, even though we might be talking about him like he is. Hawks Josh Smith playing as a center on a small ball Rockets today.
That is perfect, actually. That is perfect. That's fair.
Yeah. And he can't shoot though. That's the one thing.
I mean, it doesn't seem like. I mean,
they're running Russell Westbrook at point, so
yeah.
It's like how much does it matter?
Yeah, doesn't seem like a big deal.
Yeah, I guess D'Antoni is like. I guess he got Rocco, but he also got Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
He doesn't
speaking defensively, a lineup of Pat Bev, Harden, only exception, Trevor Ariza, Corey Brewer, and Josh Smith. I think they can lock down any team.
Yeah, they did. Like again, they were. What would I say? They were fourth defensively that year per 100 possessions. So they were definitely no joke. And again, like they made it to the semifinals or the conference finals. They just happened to run into the Warriors, who I think, if you're an NBA fan, I would say you have to appreciate this original Warriors championship team.
Definitely.
They were like, this was one of those pure teams pre-KD, pre-73-9, obviously. So
yeah.
The Rockets, they just got clapped.
Yeah, strength in numbers. Their bench really, their starting lineup was obviously, amazing. A lot of key guys, but their bench really, really like finished it for them.
Yeah.
It made them, pretty hard to beat.
I mean, their emergence with Draymond that year was special. That was very special. I'd say especially after David Lee got injured. David Lee was good. He was really good, and then Draymond came in and
he was like one could say he was better than Josh Smith. And Josh Smith, as we know, is one of the best. One of the best this period.
Yeah.
But like, I can't help but say, like, every time I think of the Warriors, everything keeps coming back to Matt Barnes. Like was Matt Barnes this bad during the regular season for this team? That's another question I have. Was he like he was starting for a team that was the third seed in the Western Conference, and this was 2014-15. 36 from 3, 44 from the field, 10 points per game, just Matt Barnes things. So I guess he could have been starting.
And what really makes as a Rockets fan,
also 30 minutes a game. Wow.
As a Rockets fan, what makes me appreciate that Western Conference Finals. They beat the Rockets. But the Rockets, it's not like they were playing badly. Harden, he was averaging 28 points a game, shooting amazing. For Harden numbers, 47% from the field, 43% from three. That's just they got beat by a better team. That's strength in numbers.
The better teams come out stronger. That's what happens.
All right. Enough of this whole Warriors Rockets banter. You guys can figure this out a little later. But back to the Rockets Clippers kind of deal. Again, like wrapping up the season recap here. These were two of the best teams in the NBA by net rating, second and seventh best for the Rockets Clippers respectively. So this was just a straight up dogfight between these two teams. 7 games, and game 6 was the weirdest one because this was not the Rockets and Clippers we expected to see at all, right? So like, shout out to the Rockets for continuing to play good defense, but goddamn, like Josh Smith, Corey Brewer led Rockets should not be playing better than the Clippers, who are slightly better.
We're placing such an emphasis on this game is because it's a comeback led by Corey Brewer and Josh Smith. Who's ever going to say that again? A comeback led by veterans Corey Brewer and Josh Smith in the playoffs. Win or go home. Like, just given the circumstances and who led this, it's really remarkable, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, Corey Brewer, an NBA champ, but he's still, is just Corey. It's Corey Brewer, man. It's just we love Corey Brewer. This is a Corey Brewer pod. In fact, we've reached out to him, some business inquiries, but it's Corey Brewer. It's what it is.
Known as a drunken dribbler, in his 51-point game, he like 90% of his field goals came inside the paint. But I think what makes Corey special is his grit, and I think it really showed in this game. He didn't play. He was never a guy that was expected to step up. Josh Smith, he's known for his scoring. He's known to be that guy. That in some situations he could drop 15 points. Surprise everyone.
He was like the second best player on the Hawks for many years behind Joe Johnson, but
Jay Smoot, he was nice. But Corey Brewer,
he got that big contract. It's no joke.
Corey Brewer, it really impresses me. Still thinking about this game, it's amazing that Corey Brewer was able to show up like this.
Yeah,
it's like Chirag. You noticed this yesterday. Corey Brewer's kind of just a weird dude. Like he's 6'9", 186, and he again LeBron level height, close to Ja Morant weight. It's just like this dude. He was actually the most outstanding player in the 2007 NCAA tournament. It's just this guy is not who he just continues to perform. He's not supposed to, but he continues to perform.
He just does unexpected things.
I just love Corey.
In the last year, Rockets playing the 76ers, Corey, 10-day contract, but the Sixers knew they put Corey on James Harden. They were going to cause some trouble, and they did. And he annoyed James Harden. He had a terrible first half, and that really set the tone for the rest of the game. And it's things like that that make Corey Brewer such an amazing player.
And okay, I think amazing is a little bit of
but he's a fan of the podcast, so shout out to Corey Brewer.
A friend of the pod. We expect to see him on here in the coming weeks. So stay tuned. If you guys have any other athletes you want to appear on the pod, so again we have Corey Brewer. We've considered guys like Tony Allen. Any other recommendations? Put them down in the comments. Joe Ingles could possibly be a target, but
you guys keep
a friend of the pod.
He'll get there. Yeah.
We just need that attention.
I think just one more thing about Corey Brewer is when I watch him play, it's just his play style is just different. It's just a little bit unconventional. If you just look at some of his highlights, and it's just he got the name the Drunken Sailor for the reason. And just like he looks like he's out of control, but he actually is in control and he's able to score. I don't know.
Some people also call him giraffe and roller skates, but I like to call him the Greyhound because he always finishes. He always goes coast to coast, never stops. Corey in high school he was only 174 pounds. When he made it to the league,
15 pounds.
When he made it to the league,
he gained
he
10
had 84. He hit 184 in
You
the
should
league.
be able to gain way more than that.
Wait, that's actually really
9
that's
pounds
actually
of pure
that's
muscle.
concerning, bro.
9 pounds of pure muscle. That really shows.
And-
That really tells you everything you need to know about
Dude,
Corey Brewer.
he's 34 right now, and he only weighs 186.
Have you guys seen Corey Brewer
Like Mo
smile?
Bamba in the last 3 months has gained how many pounds? Like 30, 25?
Dude, Raymond Felton's 20 pounds heavier than him.
Have you guys seen Corey Brewer smile? It's infectious. It is beautiful. One of the best smiles I've seen.
Like, we can toss that up on the screen for the viewers.
Yeah, I'll get that up there. Yeah.
Yeah. Are we? I don't know if we're memeing him too hard, but no, but straight up, like he's just a gritty guy.
I mean, I like him. I respect what he's done in the league for sure.
You know, he just kept getting thrown around the league. It was just kind of disrespectful, in my opinion. Like,
You know,
at least he got paid.
I really hope he would stay for with the Rockets. He signed a multi-year deal, but it came to an end, and I'm praying that one day I can see Corey Brewer back in the Rockets red.
Yeah.
100 buy Corey Brewer jerseys.
What do you say?
I think Corey deserves more. Corey Brewer more appreciation. Like people talk a lot about Tony Allen, and don't get me wrong, Tony Allen was great, but Corey was different.
Dude, Corey Brewer is one of those weird guys who's like, you think he's always 35, but at the time of this game, he was 29. It was like, Corey, what? Yeah, it's just different, bro. It's crazy.
He's always seemed like a veteran player. Is what you're just like. As a gritty veteran who did the dirty work, right? So
and that's what we want to clear up. When he comes on the pod, again, we're hoping that's, if not, in a few, 4 days. If it's not 4 days, maybe next week. We want him to clear that up. Give his take on his play, his triple threat take, if you will. He's going to be doing some big things for the Kings. Kings team that's ravaged with COVID-related injuries. So he's going to be doing some things.
Yeah, we'd love.
Looking at the Kings schedule, they're going to be in the in the bubble. They're going to be playing. They're going to be playing the Rockets. They're going to be playing the Lakers. These are games where Corey Brewer thrives. You put Corey Brewer on LeBron, he's going to get fouled out. Like LeBron, I'm saying. No, not Corey Brewer. You put him on Harden against the Rockets, you're going to frustrate him. And that's really where even the Pelicans, you put him on Zion, he's going to shut him down. It's just going to happen.
I think when you talked about Zion and LeBron, that's where I kind of disagree.
Luka,
Corey Brewer's
shut down. DeRozan,
as much as you like him, he's 186 pounds. You can
put him on anyone. That's not the point. The point is, he's a pest in a good way.
He's what one would call a piece of shit, in a good way. In a good way, right?
No, Corey, we didn't mean that, but you know what he means. In a good way. In a good way.
Sorry, Corey.
It's just a great guy.
We just really appreciate you. We think you're underappreciated.
It's like the way Pat Bev is now. He's a pest. He'll annoy you. I mean, and I think you may be Pat Bev's influence. You may be the reason Pat Bev who he is.
I see a lot of Corey Brewer.
Same team is. Well,
I think
honestly,
that's
if
where
Pat
Tony
Bev was on the
team. That's true. I would love to see a Corey
Brewer,
Pat Bev, backcourt.
A reunion, right?
Yeah. Corey Brewer and Pat Bev. Just seeing them play defense together is probably beautiful.
Considering that Corey's being disrespected with all these 10-day contracts, why wouldn't the Clippers add him? Just bring him aboard. Let him play with Pat. Just
exactly.
Fun fact: Corey Brewer was traded for Lou Williams, so another little fun reunion.
Ooh.
And I think especially in the playoffs, we saw Corey in 2017 play every single game of the playoffs. And he really took that role on the Thunder as really helping their defensive presence. And they lost in the playoffs, but I think he kept his role. He did what he needed to do, and he can really play that defensive juggernaut at the end of the game. That's what makes him special.
Yeah.
We're getting a little crazy with the word choice there.
We are
calling him a juggernaut.
Very infatuated.
Sorry, I don't know why I'm saying we. You're the one who called him a juggernaut.
He's a juggernaut.
Yeah. And I mean, so at the bottom line, we wanted to. I'll relate this back to Game 6. And And yeah, he legitimately shut down. So Josh Smith shut down Blake Griffin. You said he went 0 for 5. And this is the craziest part. What was the scoring breakdown in the fourth quarter? That was what was really notable in this matchup. Now, let me pull that up.
Okay, in the fourth, I mean, Josh Smith, I think as we said, he had scored. Wait, why is it not showing?
Well,
are you looking for like the?
Well, first of all, that teams that's like a crazy stretch, right? It was 40 to 15.
Yeah, 40 to 15. Wow. And if you look at the points it's 14 points for Josh Smith, 15 for Corey Brewer, 29 points.
Corey Brewer had as many points as the Clippers.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
And Josh Smith nearly as much as well. Like that is amazing.
And it wasn't even like they had momentum or anything. The Clippers outscored the Rockets by 11 in the third quarter, and then all of a sudden, just like that, like just bench James Harden, and they popped up.
Corey Brewer actually played the full fourth. Josh Smith did most of it as well, but it was incredible to watch them work. Yeah.
I mean, I think the entire point of this episode is to highlight the unexpected performances of these guys. Any final words from you guys about Corey, Josh, and these two teams? Just a crazy performance.
And any more unexpected performances you guys want us to break down, just put it down in the comments.
Yeah, but it's just
I think
anything to say about this
game. When you look at games like this, where a team, they're at the end of the road, they're about to go home, they don't win a game, and their best player is shooting terribly, shooting 25%. They bench them, and they put in these guys that are known mostly for their defensive presence or just coming off the bench to just add a little extra. And these are the guys that show up. They save the team while their best player is benched. I think that's what really shows the character and the grit of some of these NBA players that are underappreciated. Guys like Corey Brewer, Josh Smith, you don't hear them a lot anymore, but in the playoffs, they need guys they just need to win more, and that's all it takes sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
And a quick shout out, like just one of the GOATs, at least on the court. Kevin McHale was the coach for this Rockets team, not Mike D'Antoni. He just got disrespected. They were kind of bad at the beginning of the next year.
I agree.
The dude did this. Like, we love Corey Brewer, we love Josh Smith, but Kevin McHale deserves some credit. But the guy got canned after 11 games. And start the next year.
I mean, I guess Kevin McHale also deserves some of the credit for keeping those guys in and not messing with the momentum of the game, not putting Harden in, right?
Yeah. And being bold enough to bench your best player.
Yeah.
Drop 30, 40, on a normal night. Just being able to have the confidence in an elimination game against a very powerful Clippers team. Yeah. It shows a lot, about this team, the Rockets in general, the organization.
As an organization, that's again something we'll talk about later. We have mixed opinions on them, but I think if you guys have anything else to say, butt in here. But I think that's gonna do it for the inaugural episode of TTP. If you guys enjoyed this, leave a comment down below, hit that subscribe button. We will see you on Wednesday. All right, peace.